The story begins by introducing a young widow named Sarah, who lives in a small town with her father, Calvin, and her only child, Henry. Sarah's husband passed away before Henry was even born. Even so, she never complains about her life and raises her son with patience and genuine love. To make ends meet, Sarah and her father run the family farm, a piece of land that has supported their family for generations. One afternoon, as Henry is about to close the chicken coop, he is startled by the sudden appearance of a strange man standing behind the door. Terrified, Henry runs straight home and tells his mother that there is a thief in the coop. Without hesitation, Sarah grabs her rifle and confronts the intruder, ordering him to surrender. When she finally gets a clear look at him, she is taken aback. The man is dressed oddly with long hair and a thick beard, looking more like a homeless drifter than a chicken thief. What is even stranger is his reaction when Sarah shines a light on him. He panics, convinced that Sarah is a witch, and even assumes she is a man in disguise simply because she is wearing trousers. Noticing a wound on his head, Sarah begins to suspect that he may have hit something hard, lost his memory, and wandered here by accident. Feeling sorry for him, Sarah brings him food and tends to the injury on his forehead, a quiet reflection of her kind nature. The man apologizes for trespassing and introduces himself as Rip. He admits that he could not remember where he came from or where he was going. Strangely, when he arrived in this rural area, everything felt familiar to him, as if this place were his home. Calvin wonders if Rip might be the missing son of the Harrison family who disappeared while serving in the military years ago, especially since his age and physical features seem to match. Unexpectedly, Rip admits that he did serve in the military, but he cannot recall where he was deployed. Not long after, the local police officer, Teddy, arrives. Sarah had contacted him earlier to help identify the mysterious stranger. Teddy has secretly had feelings for Sarah for a long time, which explains why he shows up so quickly and eagerly when she asks for help. After listening to Sarah's explanation, Teddy decides to take Rip to the station to collect his fingerprints and search for him in the police database. On the way there, Rip freezes in shock when he sees a vehicle moving without horses, something that leaves both Sarah and Teddy exchanging confused glances. At the police station, Teddy immediately begins the identification process. To his surprise, Rip's identity does not appear in the national database at all. Hoping for answers, Teddy sends Rip's photo to military headquarters, in case they recognize him. He then takes Rip to the hospital to examine the injury on his head. Strangely enough, the doctors find no signs of a concussion or any other trauma. Physically, Rip is perfectly healthy. Still, his behavior is unsettling. He acts as if he is seeing modern medical equipment for the very first time. With no solid leads and no clear explanation, Teddy decides to leave Rip at the hospital for observation and safety. That night, Rip has a vivid dream. He sees a small child standing beside an elderly man, only to be suddenly jolted awake as the dream shifts into a battlefield. He has crossed into a time that is not his own. This is Rip in time. The next morning, Rip quietly leaves the hospital without the doctors knowing and makes his way back to Sarah's farm. He later explains that he cannot rest in unfamiliar places, especially with people in white uniforms checking on him every couple of hours. To him, it feels less like treatment and more like being held as a prisoner of war. Another reason he returns is simple. He realizes he never properly thanked Sarah for the food and kindness she showed him. Seeing how polite he is and how carefully he carries himself, Sarah becomes convinced that Rip is not a dangerous man. She decides to give him food and allows him to stay for a while. In return, she asks him to help out with farm work, filling in for a farmhand who quit a few days earlier. Rip gladly agrees and takes on every task she gives him. Before long, it becomes clear that he is not only willing to work, but also surprisingly skilled at it. Not long after that, Teddy shows up at the house. He has received a report that Rip left the hospital and comes to warn Sarah that his identity remains a mystery. His fingerprints do not exist in the national database, and his name is nowhere to be found in military records. Teddy worries that Rip might not be an ordinary man, but someone whose identity was deliberately erased, similar to dangerous criminals or extremists. Sarah, however, trusts her instincts. She believes Rip is a good person who may be suffering from trauma caused by war. Until his memory returns, she is willing to let him stay, especially since she needs the help, and Rip has already proven useful. Teddy does not object, but he asks Sarah to check in with him once a week so he can make sure her family is safe. After that, Sarah tries to learn more about the missing Harrison family son to compare him with Rip. Because Rip has long hair and a thick beard, it is difficult to make a fair comparison. So Sarah and Calvin take him into town to get his hair cut. Once they do, it becomes clear that Rip looks nothing like the man they were searching for. Sarah then presses further, trying to understand who Rip really is and where he served. She wonders if it was in Iraq, Afghanistan, or even Russia. Rip admits that none of those names mean anything to him. As far as he remembers, he fought against the British in the Delaware region, a claim that leaves everyone stunned since that war happened centuries ago. On their way back home, Rip becomes uneasy as he takes in the crowded streets and the modern pace of the town. His curiosity gets the better of him, and he starts following people he finds strange or unusual. Sensing trouble before it starts, Sarah quickly pulls him away and brings him back to the farm. That afternoon, Rip once again proves that he is a hardworking and dependable man on the farm. His dedication impresses Sarah, and she decides to make him a permanent worker and offer him a place to live. When Rip is shown the house where he will be staying, he insists that this is the very place where he grew up, a claim Sarah immediately finds impossible since her family has owned the house for generations. Still holding on to his belief, Rip steps inside and is visibly shaken. The interior feels unfamiliar to him, changed in many ways from what he remembers. Even so, one detail stands out clearly in his memory: a wooden carving on the wall that he made as a child, bearing the name Rip Van Winkle Jr., and the year 1758, the year he claims to have been born. This revelation sends chills through Sarah and Calvin. As impossible as it sounds, the carving feels like undeniable proof of something they cannot explain.
Those are initials. My initials. Rip Van Winkle II. Well, that's my birth date. The 8th of April, 1758.
Sarah tells Rip that it is now the year 2022 and that no human could possibly live for more than 250 years. Rip falls silent, overwhelmed by the truth before collapsing in confusion. After he regains consciousness, Calvin gives him a book that tells the story of a man named Rip Van Winkle, a piece of folklore that closely mirrors what Rip has been experiencing. As Rip finishes reading, he realizes that the story is about his own father. He even recognizes several of the names mentioned in the book. Once again, Rip insists that he was born in 1758 and believes the current year to be 1787. He explains that when he was 8 years old, he was given the same name as his father, Rip Van Winkle Sr. His parents often fought fiercely, and one day, fed up with the constant arguments, his father left for the forest to calm himself. That day became the last time Rip ever saw him. From that moment on, Rip worked tirelessly to take his father's place and manage the family farmland. At the age of 17, Rip was called to fight in the war for American independence. Those years were brutal, and at one point he was even shot on the battlefield. Still, he survived, returned home, and resumed his life as a farmer. As time passed, his mother died of old age, and his younger sister married and moved away, leaving Rip alone with a vast stretch of farmland. He lived in solitude for many years until one day his father suddenly returned after being gone for nearly 2 decades. Strangely, his father had not aged at all and looked exactly the same as when he disappeared. His return shocked the entire community, especially the fact that his body showed no signs of aging. His father then shared a mysterious story with the villagers. While walking through a valley, he had found a cave containing bottles of wine. A violent thunderstorm broke out, and as he waited for the rain to pass, he drank the wine and soon fell asleep. When he finally woke up, the world around him had changed completely. His son, once 9 years old, was now a grown man of 29. From this, Rip Sr. believed he had slept inside the cave for 20 years without aging a single day. Despite the physical proof standing before them, no one believed his story, not even Rip himself. Still, because his father swore that everything he said was true, Rip decided to go to the cave and see the truth for himself. When Rip reaches the cave, the rain suddenly pours down without warning. With no other choice, he takes shelter inside. Just as his father once described, several bottles of wine are waiting there. The cold air forces him to drink some of it to stay warm, and before he realizes it, he falls asleep until morning. When he wakes up, everything around him feels completely different. Disoriented, Rip wanders through the forest for 2 days before finally reaching the area in a state of confusion and hunger. After reflecting on everything that happened, Rip comes to a shocking realization. The cave is not just a shelter, but a gateway through time. He entered it in the year 1787 and emerged in 2022, meaning he traveled 235 years into the future. It becomes clear that his father likely experienced the same phenomenon. He did not sleep for 20 years, but instead traveled 20 years ahead in time. Even though Rip explains this with complete honesty, Sarah and Calvin struggle to believe it. As a result, Sarah decides to take him to a medical specialist in New York for a proper evaluation. The next day, life continues as usual on the farm. Rip works the fields and spends time playing with Henry, and the two quickly grow close. Although Sarah remains skeptical of Rip's incredible story, she cannot deny that he is becoming part of their daily life. His presence fits naturally into their routine, making Sarah feel as if she has gained a new member of the family. When Rip learns that Henry is often bullied at school, he begins teaching the boy basic self-defense so he can protect himself. As Rip grows closer to the family, Henry starts to feel like he has finally found the father figure he never had. Sarah feels it too. Rip turns out to be skilled at trading and helps Sarah sell all of their farm produce with ease. Without realizing it, Sarah begins to develop feelings for him. A week later, Sarah takes Rip to New York City. Upon arriving, Rip is left in awe by the towering buildings and amazed by how humans could construct something so grand. At the medical facility, doctors conduct a full physical examination and place Rip under hypnosis to verify his story. Even under hypnosis, Rip recounts the same events without any changes. The doctor admits that this is unusual. Most patients describe delusions or imagined lives when hypnotized, but in Rip's case, his story remains consistent, suggesting that it may be real.
I think his brain has created an elaborate delusion which places his trauma to a war almost 250 years in the past. It's quite unusual, especially for a patient to maintain such a complex delusion under hypnosis.
The physical examination reveals something even more astonishing. A bullet is lodged inside Rip's body, and no one can explain how he survived with it for so long. What truly shocks the doctor is the type of bullet itself, which was only used in wars during the 1700s, roughly 250 years ago. Because of this, the doctor advises Sarah to take Rip to meet a quantum physics professor, someone who might be able to explain the time travel phenomenon Rip has experienced. After hearing Rip's story, the professor offers a possible explanation. He suggests that the area around the cave where Rip took shelter may contain rare elements, such as radioactive materials like uranium or something similar. When the thunderstorm struck, the intense lightning could have agitated these elements and released an enormous surge of energy. That energy may have caused a distortion in space and time, briefly forming a wormhole that connected two different points in history. This would explain why Rip passed through the cave without realizing he had just crossed a time portal. Because such a rupture in space and time would only exist temporarily, the portal likely disappeared soon after. This means Rip cannot return to his original era, unless the same type of storm happens again in that exact location.
There seems to be a connection between the particles that exist across time.
If the cave that you mentioned had high amounts of lead, zinc, molybdenum, and trace amounts of a radioactive element like uranium or radium even, and it was subject to sudden intense jolts of energy like the lightning strike that you described, it would effectively create a wormhole.
The professor explains that physics is not only about defining natural phenomena, but also about reminding us that not everything in the universe can be neatly explained. Nature often works in ways that go far beyond human understanding. Despite everything that has happened, Rip expresses deep gratitude to Sarah for her kindness and for choosing to believe in him. More than that, she gave him the chance to be useful and to build a life in this unfamiliar time. At the same time, Sarah begins to notice a change in her own life since meeting Rip. Everything feels lighter and more meaningful. It could be the loneliness she carried for so long finally easing, or perhaps she is slowly opening her heart to someone new. Rip, on the other hand, deeply admires Sarah. For a man raised in the 17th century, her strength, independence, and compassion are qualities rarely seen in women of his time. One day, Teddy comes by the house to check on Sarah. It has been a while since she last reported anything about Rip. And as a responsible police officer, Teddy feels obligated to make sure the man's background is safe. He worries that Rip might be a con artist trying to take advantage of Sarah, though in truth, his concern is fueled by jealousy over how close she has become to Rip. Sarah appreciates Teddy's concern, but she asks him to stop suspecting Rip, insisting that he is not the kind of person Teddy imagines. Later that afternoon, Rip joins Sarah and her family at the night market, where the villagers are celebrating a local festival. As the evening unfolds and the mood grows lively, Teddy unexpectedly shows up and tries to step in, disrupting the moment. Elsewhere at the festival, Calvin gets into an argument with a dishonest collector named Waylon. Waylon claims that the items he is selling are antiques from the 1700s. But as someone who was actually born in the 17th century, Rip immediately recognizes the truth. He explains that the so-called antiques are nothing more than ordinary farming tools from everyday life, and he carefully shows the villagers how they were used, making sure no one is fooled by the scam. When they arrive back home, Rip once again expresses his gratitude to Sarah for treating him like family. He reflects on the life she has built, a devoted son and a caring father who stands by her side. As the night grows late, Rip heads back to his cabin. But just moments after he leaves, Sarah runs after him and embraces him in the light drizzle. This intimate moment is quietly witnessed by Teddy, who has secretly followed Sarah home. Overcome with anger and jealousy, Teddy later confronts Rip at the cabin. He believes a man with an unclear identity has no right to interfere in the life of a good farming family. Teddy insists there is no proof that Rip ever served in the military and labels him a liar, claiming his story about fighting for American independence is nothing but fiction that could damage Sarah's family reputation. He urges Rip to leave if he truly cares about Sarah.
You fooled these people into thinking you belong here, but you do not. Your presence here is doing damage to her and her entire family.
I can't even imagine what you mean.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? I'm telling you right now, there is no future for you here.
That confrontation lingers in Rip's mind, forcing him to question whether staying in this time and place is truly the right choice, or if it is time for him to return to his own era. One misty morning, Rip leaves behind a farewell letter for Sarah. In it, he expresses guilt over his inability to explain his origins and fears that his presence may bring trouble to her family. Because of that, he decides to return to where he believes he belongs. Sarah is confused and hurt when she finds the letter, especially since Rip promised the night before that he would not leave. She suspects that he intends to return to the past, so she rushes out to find him and searches for the cave he once described. As the rain grows heavier, Sarah pushes forward without hesitation. Eventually, she finds Rip sitting alone inside the cave, consumed by sadness and guilt. Rip believes leaving is the only way to protect Sarah and her family, influenced by what Teddy told him. Sarah strongly rejects that idea. She insists that Teddy's concerns have nothing to do with what truly matters. Rip's presence has brought happiness to Henry, comfort to her father, and meaning to her own life. She believes there must be a reason Rip was brought into the future, and if he chooses to leave, she and her family are ready to follow him back to the past. Her words deeply move Rip. For the first time, he truly understands how much he means to Sarah and her family. In the end, they decide to return home together. But just as they step out of the cave, a powerful bolt of lightning strikes. Rip suddenly realizes that he left his bag behind inside the cave. Strangely, it has vanished without a trace, as if it has already traveled through time back to the past. The story then shifts back to the year 1787. After hearing rumors about the mysterious cave, Rip suddenly disappears. His father grows suspicious and heads to the cave in the hills, convinced that his son may have gone there. Inside the cave, Rip Sr. discovers a bag that belongs to Rip. Inside it, he finds Rip's journal, filled with entries written during his time living on Sarah's farm. Page by page, he reads it carefully and slowly realizes the impossible truth. His son did not simply vanish, but traveled far into the future, where he found love and a life filled with happiness. Even if the townspeople never believe such a story, Rip's father finds comfort and peace in the words his son left behind. The story then returns to the year 2022. Rip and Sarah finally decide to get married. Alongside Henry and Calvin, they build a joyful life together, proving that love and family can cross the boundaries of time. And with that, the story comes to an end. So the moral of the story is that sometimes love arrives after a lifetime of loss, and when it finally feels like home, it reminds us how painfully fragile time is, because not everyone gets to belong where their heart chooses.